Welcome, everyone. Today is July 30th, 2020. I'm Mike.
And I'm Brian.
And this is what got our attention. So, as we start this one off, what have you been playing this week?
Actually, not all that much. Well, let me start off with a shocker. I don't think I've played any Satisfaction. Satisfactory.
Wow.
I haven't played Satisfaction either.
I didn't either.
No, the only thing I played pretty much was the game that we played together, which was Grounded. And
yeah, actually, that was actually really fun and kind of surprising. I didn't actually know anything about the game other than the screenshots we had saw earlier this year during that Game Fest and a little bit of the coverage they had on that. I went in expecting one thing, and since I didn't know anything about it, and I came out expecting something completely different and actually having a good time.
Yeah, I the only thing I knew about it was the little bit of video that they showed on the Xbox event, and and then it dropped in early access. Mind you, it is not released; it's early access. You get a very, very tiny slice of the story. Like literally, people they're like, oh, people are shocked that the story ends so suddenly because
right, that was the only downfall for me.
You don't realize there's a story until you hit this one thing and you're talking to this robot, and then it ends. So it's like you're like, oh wait, there's a story, and then 30 seconds later, oh, but you can't go into it. But it's early access. The gameplay is there, and so it's fun because the concept is you wake up shrunk down. I had some concerns with how we woke up. It just looks weird.
Yeah, you did mention that.
I'll let people discover that, but boy, it looks weird because you're like, oh, it's like a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And so in that concept, you're like, oh yeah, well, we were big people and now we got shrunk down. But no, you wake up and it's some odd circumstances. They don't even point it out to you. It just seems weird. And you go around, and then there's survival crafting and survival food, and which the crafting blew your mind, Xycia. You had no idea it was in there.
Well, that's the thing, and those are always the games that kind of stroke my interest, right? The survival aspect where you're building or crafting, and obviously crafting. I spent the whole time, probably the 400 hours I played of Fallout 4, I spent just building a city. That's what I did.
See,
and many other games
I would have never guessed that, because all you wanted to do was to fight ants and fight ladybugs in this thing.
Well, that's not exactly what I wanted to do. It's just something that I could do. And I don't want to give too many spoilers. It's out right now. You can go check it out on their Xbox Game Pass, or it'll be released. I think you can actually buy it from the Steam store as well. But the main thing that I will say is the crafting.
Okay, that wasn't the main thing I was going to say. The main thing I was going to say is they've got a very clear message before you even started playing. And that's if they literally say, if you're super not okay with spiders, then under the accessibility menu is an arachnophobia setting.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something you should check out, because I will say I'm not a fan.
Lots of big spiders.
I'm not scared of spiders, but man, does it make you feel like they're real spiders and they're huge. So that was one of the cool things that I got to check out from that.
And before we move on, one last thing about it is we are definitely going to play another round of this, at least one more round. And we are definitely going to turn on that arachnophobia setting just to see what it does, because I don't know what you're going to do about these giant spiders that attack you. So it's going to be very interesting to see what that setting does.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen other games. I think it's actually Satisfactory that has arachnophobia mode, and they just put the head of cats, like little cat head runs around. That's all you see is like a pixelated cat head. So I don't know what they're going to do for this, but maybe it'll be a unicorn or something. We'll see, I guess.
We'll see.
So I wanted to say, before we got into the news today, last week we had a stream content creator, Neato, on our stream. And I wanted to point this out because this actually happened after this past week, after the last time we talked to her. And what we found out is that she actually posted this message on Twitter. And she said, I have no words. I became an affiliate from Twitch exactly 2 years ago today. and I hope we can keep spreading good vibes and playing Rocket League for the rest of the time. Thank you, friends. I'm a Twitch partner. So I just wanted to say congratulations, Neato, for becoming a Twitch partner. That's really awesome. You definitely deserve it. You've worked really hard to get to this point, and it's always kind of like a dream back in the day when you talked about it. But it's great that you made it there. So I just wanted to say thanks for that.
Yeah, that was awesome. Congratulations. That's amazing. At Neato Queen RL put in so much hard work. Neato, you deserve it. You've put in the work. That's awesome. Congratulations.
And disclaimer, as she announced in her live stream today, is that she's actually going to go through new branding, and she's going to be just considered Neato going forward.
Oh, nice.
So she said that she didn't really never identified as a queen. She wouldn't really want anybody to call her a queen as of just Neato. So they're actually going to be doing some new branding just to be called Neato at this point. So you'll see that happening probably pretty soon. So, all right, to kind of get into the news, first article here we have that we want to talk about is something we kind of covered before. And what it is Red Dead Redemption 2 online. There was the article we talked about before where the online community had dressed up as clowns to kind of protest the fact that, Rockstar hasn't really done anything with Red Dead Online. And it's apparent. It's pretty plain view. Everybody sees it. And what we found out is that the clown protests have finally paid off. Red Dead Online is actually getting a massive update. Well, I wouldn't say massive. They're getting another update. And so people are actually pretty excited about that. So it's called it's going to be called the Outlaw Pass, and it's the Frontier Pursuit. And what it is basically, I think you're going to be able to like do a little bit more hunting and things online. We won't really know until it comes out, but yeah, it was just something interesting. I figured we'd point back out since the protest, even protesting in video games actually makes a point. So that's always good. Stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah, not only that. I mean, because one of the things that we talked about that was that it was, yeah, and I'm not taking away from any protest by saying this, but it was positive protesting where they were trying to say there was a problem, but at the same time they were having fun, and they weren't trash talking, and they weren't griefing other players. They were just going around and dressing up as various different things in circuses, and and I obviously, yes, some of this that obviously Rockstar was already working on, but for the majority of time that this was released, there were no updates. 7 months out of like a year that had been released, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
At the same time, you can't have updates every month because then you have problems with crunch and problems with and
actually producing quality content. I mean, that's another thing too. So it's important to keep the balance, as most studios see. But it was getting kind of scarce out there on the online Red Dead world.
And the reality is there's probably content that Rockstar has worked on that they just never released for this because they started doing the content and they just, we're going the wrong direction, so like we're not going to release this. That happens all the time. In fact, there was a giant leak called the Giga-Leak recently. This has been developing pretty much all week since our last newscast. And I would like to say that I was hesitant to include it this week, mostly because this isn't all positive, and I'll get into that more towards the end. But I didn't want to add to this because of that until I started seeing other people starting to realize, okay, there's some cool aspects and there's some fun aspects of it, but we've got to be careful because there's some negative that might come out of this too. So there was a giant leak of Nintendo's assets spanning quite a ways back, at least to the Nintendo 64 and even before range. So they had things that leaked that they just had not put in games. And, and there's leaks that happen like this all the time, and some of them are fake. This one looks like it's not fake because one of the actual developers that worked on Star Fox 2, which was this gentleman, saw one of the released images and goes, "Oh my God, I remember programming that tool. I haven't seen that tool for a whole long time now." It's like, where did these people get this? Because it's not like it's not like a screenshot of the game. It is a tool that he expressly created to test certain things in like Star Fox and Star Fox 2. And he's like, it's been 30 years since I seen that tool. Where do these hackers
like C++? Well, he was saying that C++ is like something he was working on, just trying to get better at it, and that's kind of the tool he created to try to help himself do that. And he sees it like 25 years later, like what the heck?
Yeah, he's like, where the hackers get this? So it seems like there's some validity to this leak. Now, on the cool side, on the exciting side, just about anyone who's a Nintendo fan, kind of gets something out of this. And I don't necessarily want them seeking this out, but there's things like a never released Animal Crossing character, one of the NPCs in the town and stuff like that, including like different emotions that character had, different facial expressions, stuff like that. And they found the artwork of that. And this is every day people are like, oh, I found this new thing. Very exciting to some people was actual art of Luigi, 3D art of Luigi for Super Mario 64.
Conspiracy confirmed.
Conspiracy confirmed. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, there was a conspiracy out there about this statue that has a star and that has this inscription down below, and people couldn't read what the inscription said. And some people like interpret it as essentially like a number of years, 24 years plus, 1 month, or there was different ways to interpret it. And this leak happened about around that time, actually, coincidentally. And all of them thought that like, oh, there's secret ways to get to Luigi within this game, and it ends up there's not. It's just that it was artwork that they did, and they just decided not to add it to the game. But obviously, they were thinking about adding it to the game sometime in the past.
The interesting thing is too with Nintendo is they take like very meticulous notes. Like for them to like have all of this information stored over this many years is pretty impressive. I mean, most game studios, or even when you're, even when me and you work on projects together on different things, like chances of us saving something, from 25 years, especially something that's not like a main part of the project that we're doing. We're not going to just keep this one notepad for this one part that we looked at once,
This stuff is lost all the time. Source code for actual released games is lost, which boggles people's minds. There was one game developer, actually more than one, actually, that as they were moving out of an office, they laughingly put their source code of disks into a binder and put it up above in the recessed ceiling. And other people later found it. In other cases, they didn't find it. People lose where the legal rights even there's games out there that no one is sure who even owns anymore because it's all on paper and it's not digital, and it's not worth their time to go down to the archives and try to figure it out. So stuff gets lost all the time. So to have a leak like this, where this like an unused beach area in Ocarina of Time and what it would have looked like, an enemy that didn't make it into Super Mario 64 as well. Star Fox 2, which originally didn't release, but then recently released on the was it Super NES Mini, I believe.
Yeah, the Mini.
The Mini. It was built into that, and it was the first time it was actually released. The source code had leaked for it several times, and some people had kind of cajoled it together, but this was the official release, right? But Star Fox 2, apparently they found out that there was going to be a playable human character. Which was just so odd because, like, if you've played Star Fox, you don't play as you play as these animal type characters. And it was a female character with like this big, incredible hair and everything. That is one of the things I probably do recommend for somebody to go out and check out because it's very cool. It's cool that they were trying to get some of this inclusivity that we're like, hey, we're going to put in a character you can choose to play as a female character. Back when Star Fox 2 was supposed to be coming out, which was between the Nintendo and Super Nintendo eras. So, I mean, there's just all these things, stuff about like Yoshi's Island. They found this Yoshi that was like a grandpa Yoshi with this big old bushy white mustache. some Super Mario Kart stuff, some Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past stuff. This just technology tests. Literally, this is a massive link with gigs and gigs of data in it. But then comes the part where people are like looking at this leak going, oh man, like from the preservationist side, it's awesome because you get to preserve this bit of history of how people were thinking and what they decided to include versus what they decided not to include. But then there's the morality issue where you start looking at some of the other things that got leaked. And it's like personal emails. And some of these...
That's the part where it kind of starts getting bad because, I mean, that's the scary part.
Yeah, because some of these people, they might actually still have some of these emails if they work for the same company, which maybe they do, maybe they're not. But still, it's an email that they meant to be internal. They didn't mean for this to have public access and people reading it. Right. And there's definitely instances of that in this leak too, where there's literal conversations in text files between different developers talking about some sensitive stuff that really has nothing to do with the game. And there's no reason to have this for a preservationist side of things. And it's just things that they're like maybe complaining about or whatever that just are not for public content. And there's a lot of people, commenting saying, there's a certain allure here. You can't help to look, it's wrong, but there it is. Luigi and Mario 64. And people are just kind of unhappy about how it happened. And that's just the moral side of it. There's the other side of it too, that Nintendo, a Japanese company, and Japanese companies traditionally have had this love-hate relationship with the internet. And anyone who's played on Nintendo platforms know very much that Nintendo really kind of gates off like the internet stuff. Like you don't have user identities, you have a friend code, and it's very specific how you share it, and it's specific how you share levels, and you can't necessarily, and it's almost like Japanese companies and Nintendo in particular are scared of people on the internet stealing their stuff. Well, guess what? It just happened.
I know. I mean, it's inevitable for a lot of companies, unless cybersecurity has been one of those things that a lot of people have really started truly investing in now. And it's not until most companies don't really realize that it's a big deal until it happens to them. I mean, look at all the different data leaks that we've had over the last 10 years at this point, if not 15 years. And and the thing is, if it's not something like Nintendo, then nobody cares, right? Like, it's a little small company. They're not going to think about their maybe thousands of customers maybe leak their credit card. Oh, we'll just tell you, send you an email. How many emails have you gotten that it's like, hey, by the way, just to let you know, we kind of sold out. Well, we kind of had a data breach, but only thing we gave them was your name. And it's like, well, that's still bad. Like, you shouldn't be leaking anything. Like, you shouldn't
like those email addresses,
right? I mean, that's still something.
And and a lot of people are concerned about how Nintendo is going to react to this, because Nintendo again has that relationship with the internet where it's really odd sometimes. And yet they still did things like in the Super NES Mini release Star Fox 2. They didn't have to do that. They could have left that in the archives and not done it, but it was a pretty much complete game, and they went ahead and released it. And there were a lot of cool things that happened in that game. But now that this happens, now that their fears are proven out, that somebody did come in and steal their stuff, just threw it out on the internet, what's that do for the future? How does Nintendo start to lock down the internet stuff from here on out? Do they do something like, it would be nice if this actually encouraged Nintendo to share some of their past. It's Verge is got the great article about this, about some of the negatives here. I highly recommend you going out and checking it. Some of the things that they said is, in a perfect world, this leak would encourage Nintendo to be more open about their developmental history, to partner with the preservationists and archivists, allow the public a means to see and explore those lovely what could have beens. How great would it be if Nintendo themselves freely distributed those mythical Mario 64 Luigi assets, or Super Donkey, the primordial, highly experimental Yoshi Island precursor? And again, that quote is directly from the Verge article. Nintendo Giga-Leak controversy history preservation archives. Highly recommend you go check that out because it's got a lot more information than what we were provided here. Hopefully they go towards the positive side and not towards the negative side of locking stuff down even more.
Right.
Yeah.
So to kind of touch on coming to positive in sort of a sense, not really, this is not a positive article to talk about, but so if you're familiar with Smash Brothers or the Smash Bros, Super Smash Bros Brawl, or any of those types, you're probably familiar with the name of Zero. And Twitch streamer, his name is Zero. He's probably considered, to some, probably one of the best in the world for Smash Bros. And basically, it kind of came up recently that in the last month, but really about a couple of weeks now, Twitch has come out and permanently banned Zero from their platform. You're probably wondering why. Well, it was announced that Zero, when he was still 19, he was actually doing kind of like sexual explicit messages to minors, like 14-year-old people on the internet. So that was kind of accused of him. And then once that kind of spread around and people started hearing about this, he actually did come out and tried to own it and said, yeah, that is me. He understands that, that's wrong, and that, he tried to be a better person now. And of course, by saying that doesn't mean that anything is better. I mean, hopefully, for his sake, he is trying to make himself better and understand that what the consequences that could be and things like that. But because of that was announced on it was early in July. I think it was July 2nd. And then actually on July 22nd, Twitch officially banned him. It was 18 days later from their platform. Since then, he hasn't been seen online at all, any sort of presence on YouTube or Twitch or any kind of streaming platform other than that. And it seems to be that he's kind of just disappeared at this point. And it's unfortunate, especially, we keep hearing new things like this every day with, different kind of allegations or different type of harassment charges and things. And, the bottom line of all of that, it's just, just because you apologize doesn't mean it's right. And when saying that doesn't mean that you can't become a better person and really own it and, and take responsibility. And in this case, it seems like he's one of those people who decided to own it and, be responsible for what his actions were and know that it's wrong. But ultimately, it's still a bad thing. And it's, and he's obviously his image online is definitely going to suffer for that.
Absolutely. And I think Twitch did the right thing here. As much as you want to be able to move forward, as much as you want to be able to think about people being rehabilitated, and regardless of how old he was, 19 is still pretty young. That doesn't excuse anything. And right. In all reality, it came out now. So the consequences are now. And so, yes, the consequences, they still have to happen. And I think Twitch did the right thing there. And, you say, unfortunately, and I know what you mean. And what I want to say is, fortunately, yes, this stuff is still coming out because fortunately, the consequences are finally happening to some of these people that should not have been doing this stuff.
Very true.
These different people are getting put into positions of power, perceived or not, or reality, doesn't matter. And they take advantage of it. Whether they take advantage of it maliciously or whether they take advantage of it because they're just overwhelmed by the power and they make bad decisions. And while that happens, regardless, you still got to do the right thing. And you still have to pause and stop and, do the right thing and move forward in the right direction. So I agree. I don't like hearing about all these stories, but at the same time, I'm glad that they are coming forward and that these stories are coming out and people are facing the consequences for their actions because it's high time. I mean, some of the stuff that we've been hearing about has been going on just for years and years and years and years.
For years.
Yeah. And well, yes, it's time to stand up and face the audience and take the consequences for that stuff. And whether that means that you no longer can be an entertainer ever again and you have to completely change your jobs. That's the least of his worries. I mean, if someone actually gets taken to court and, which could actually happen here, and labeled as a sexual predator and stuff like that, that's, a far worse consequence. So, banning from Twitch, oh my God, that's the minorest thing that can happen to him. So yeah, Twitch did the right thing as far as I'm
probably
concerned.
one of the many things that may be happening coming up. So
yeah. So while I don't like to hear about these things happening because I have hopes that people are going to be better people, at least it seems like some justice is starting to happen.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's at least he owns it and he's coming out and at least did that. But and hopefully more people will do that. I mean, I say hopefully more people. I mean, obviously, I don't want to hear more people are the ones that did this, but it is something that's inevitable. We know that it's happened. It's just that now we're finding out about it. I'd rather not it be a allegation. I'd rather it just be, hey, I own it. You haven't heard this before. I own it.
Yeah, and I don't want to hear about it continuing to happen.
Yeah.
But I do want to hear about what has happened and make sure that people are, standing up for their rights. The people that, the victims here, the people that they didn't do anything wrong. Stuff happened to them. So, I mean, I don't want anyone else going forward in the industry to do this stuff. I hope people learn and everybody just, when they get that sudden position of power, that sudden popularity, that they now know better and they think about their actions ahead of time. That's hopefully the positive outcome here.
Right.
So not necessarily positive outcome, but not as dire news. Not nearly as dire as news, obviously. So Comic-Con, because of the Rona-economy that we're in,
we should have a Rona-Con.
Yeah, Rona-Con about the Rona-economy. Yeah, right. Rona-Con? Man, I think you might be onto something there. No, Comic-Con, like most physical events, decided wisely to cancel. And like some of those physical events, they decided to have an online event. So they had Comic-Con at home. And that's where they streamed out their panels and allowed people to watch them. And so that happened within this last week. And there was a lot of interesting things. So Variety.com's got a great article, basically why Comic-Con at home was a bust. And looking at the information, they got a lot of numbers in here. I highly recommend people go out and read that one as well. But it was very interesting because they had Comic-Con had some high tier panels that they were doing, including The Walking Dead. Now, The Walking Dead, year after year after year after year with Comic-Con, just brings people in. It's a popular show. Of course it does. Been going on for season
we
after
have
season.
a Walker Stalker Con, which has basically been taken over by Walking Dead as well, which didn't start off as a Walking Dead convention, and it literally turned into one. So
yeah, it's a super popular show. A lot of people want to tune in to learn, the inside baseball, what's happening, what's happening behind the scenes or what's coming next, and they want to get this additional information, and that's the information that you tend to get out of a con. And there's, of course, other things happening at Comic-Con at home, but they were looking at that for some numbers to just try to compare it, because since it is such a popular thing year after year, it's a good way to judge or at least assess how well this Comic-Con at home worked versus previous years when it's physical. And it was interesting because they saw things like a 95% decrease in tweets about the panel after the panel. And that's a lot less conversations going on. So that's kind of concerning. At this, and literally to give you some actual numbers, this year after the main, because there was spinoff panels too for the spinoff shows coming up that are based on Walking Dead but are spinoffs. But the main show, 93,681 tweets for the 5-day event. And I believe that's not just the Walking Dead. That's like that's the everything Comic-Con. Almost 94,000 tweets. That's a lot of tweets. But again, that's a 95% drop from the previous year when it was 1,719,000 tweets. So,
well, it's one thing to be a part of something at the moment. You're like, oh my God, I just saw, this thing happen. I'm going to tweet about it because I'm here and I want people to know that I was a part of this part of history.
I've done that at PAX.
That online is, that's not going to be as much. Obviously, we see the numbers now, right? So I think it's interesting, being that you're wearing a PAX shirt.
I was going to point that out. I'm low enough. No, I've done the same thing at PAX where I tweet out live, like snapshots of what they're showing and things they're saying about of stuff that they're premiering. That's like the first announcement is at PAX, and I like live tweet that stuff sometimes. So they looked at some other because tweets aren't the only metric. They looked at some other metrics. They looked at views on YouTube, and they saw that Thursday, which is typically the biggest day, they saw Thursday that the views were hovering around 15,000 live viewers per panel. Now, to give that into some perspective, 15,000 is over double the size of the largest hall in the San Diego Comic-Con. So in one way, that's awesome because they've got twice as many people showing up or more for these panels. For some of the panels that would have been in smaller halls, it could have been 4 or 5 times what would have showed up for those panels. So, I mean, that's a positive. But at the same time, for live events that are being sent across YouTube, 15,000 viewers it's a very, very small amount. So it's kind of hard to tell how popular it was. Now, numbers aside, let's set the numbers aside for a second. I think the most interesting thing that came out about this is that these panels took away one of the primary reasons why you physically go to a con and stand in line, sometimes for hours, to get into a panel. Yeah, for hours, to get into a panel on this show that you're passionate about. And that's assuming that you make the line cap too, because again, they can only fit so many people in the hall. So I've literally been in a line.
You would plan your conventions around what day is the panel, because that's what I'm doing that day. Because you can't really plan anything else. You literally try to get in line, and then you're going to be in line for X amount of hours. I mean, it's insane.
Because if you're not there in line 2-3 hours before the panel, they might fill up the hall. I have literally seen a line cap 4 or 5 people in front of me, like knowing that I was like 5-6 people away from getting in and seeing this panel.
Yep.
It doesn't kill me because most of the panels I go and see are usually, like stored on Twitch, and I can go watch the VOD later. It's not like I'm that bummed out. But when you stand that much time in line that you could have been doing other things, okay.
And you miss out on other panels that you decided to choose this one over that one. Yeah, I mean, typically if you're that close.
Sorry about the segue.
Yeah.
We keep talking about lines here, but I haven't talked about the important part, which is they took away the most important part about physically being there, which is that if you're in a panel that you're physically there, almost universally, the panel sets aside 10 or 15 minutes at the end for people to come up to that live mic and ask their favorite actor or their favorite person or anything like that, whatever question comes to their mind. Not all the questions are good. Man, Felicia Day had a great question back in the past. I love the question that Felicia Day got asked, and she didn't even know what it meant, and it was a lewd question that had to be described to her. She was very scandalized. But no, I mean, like, that's the point, though, is you're there to ask questions. Apparently, most, if not all of the panels were just pre-recorded. So they played the VOD, and no one in the chat could ask any questions. Even if it was live, they just didn't field questions. So it took away one of the major things there. And I think to me, that's the big thing that hurts them there, that even if they want to do this again, have this online component, even in addition to a live component later, it's really going to hurt them if they take away one of the main reasons why people want to see it live, which is that ability to interact with these people. And don't get me wrong, 10 or 15 minutes of a panel, the number of people that can actually interact is a small fraction of all the people that are there. But there's plenty of people there that go there that they don't want to ask a question because they don't want to get, I mean, I get it. I'm introverted myself. It doesn't seem like it, but I am. It's hard for me to go up to a mic and ask somebody a question, because when you do that, the entire room's looking at you because they want to know what you're going to ask.
That's a good question.
Yeah. And there are people there that just want to see what other people ask and, see what the responses are. So they want to live, kind of vicariously through the people asking those questions. So even the people that don't ask questions are there in some way to see what the other people ask. So that's a major thing that ended up being missing from Comic-Con at home. Be curious, going to be very curious if the other online conventions that got planned, like Dragon Con, are they calling it Dragon Con Live or
I don't know much more information.
I don't think they've announced what they're going to call theirs yet. But Dragon Con's going to have an online one, and then PAX Online, both coming up in September. Very curious if they're going to learn from this and have some way to get submissions of questions from the online chat and then have people respond to them live or not. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, they could even do like, email submissions early. If the panel is going to be a panel, you could say like, hey, just submit questions and we can pull the questions from that and then we'll read them out live on air. But, it's hard to tell. We'll see if they'll learn something from that. Speaking of some people who have learned from the past, so we talked about PlayStation Plus, about their free games that they've released out for PlayStation Plus, and we talked about July, and we talked about the backlash that the Twitter community had against the games they were releasing that were just old games that already were released the year before, that they already could get for free or cheap, and
on the Plus anniversary, which was an important date for them to get it right too. But
right, exactly. And then the best game was like a game that wasn't even like nobody even knew about. So it's interesting. So they actually announced their August lineup for what games you'd get with PlayStation Plus, and obviously we're all waiting for the same announcement of the same old games, or maybe we'll get the original Spyro without being the remastered version or something. And they announced two actual good games, and the first one is Modern Warfare 2, the remastered, the campaign remastered. So if you ever did remember playing Modern Warfare 2 back on PS, I think it was PS2, PS2, and they actually released the remastered version recently. I think it was last year, and it's basically the same game but just completely rehauled, all HD. Everything looked great, and they obviously the multiplayer component's not a part of this, so unfortunately you're not gonna be able to play Modern Warfare Online, which is a bummer. But I mean, hey, they still have the new Modern Warfare that just obviously is doing great right now. And so they have that game that came out. So that's a pretty solid hit for one of the free games the PlayStation Plus community would get. The second game is actually interesting in the sense that it's actually not even released yet. They just played this. This game has just been in closed beta. Over the weekend, Twitch streamers had been playing this game online and reviewing it, and it's got a lot of good feedback. And that game is called Fall Guys. And if you're not familiar with what this is, which actually I think Brian has actually seen it live at PAX in the past, and but Fall Guys is almost like a up to 60 player, almost battle royale-esque type game. But I mean, it's imagine playing a very cartoonistic, almost like what is it? It's the brawl game, like the fighting game. The
okay, so let me paint a picture for you. And
Yeah.
I hate to use like copyrightable things here, but imagine minions, and you get to play as a minion, one of 60, and you get to run towards stuff, and stuff spinning around and may hit you. And you got different games where you got to race to the top of the mountain, and there's like boulders coming down and hitting you, and everything's very cartoony looking. The physics are very cartoony. Or whether it's like everybody's got a tail and you got to run up behind somebody, grab their tail so that you got one. And it's kind of like, there's not enough tails to go around. So it's kind of like musical chairs where, people get eliminated. Things are spinning around and spinning up and down and bouncing you all over the place. Or another one where you're like grabbing eggs and you take them back to your base, and it's 3 teams, and you get so much points per egg, but some of the golden eggs, are worth more. And then smart people go to the other team and go into their area where the eggs are stored and grab them out and pull them out. I mean, it's just all these different games with these very minion-ish type characters that
very Mario Party like the mini games, but it's like that's the game.
Except longer.
Like you literally play.
Yeah, except for each game's like around like 4 to 5 minutes as opposed to 4 to 5 seconds. And I did not get to play it, but I watched it a lot because I actually stood in line a couple of times for it. And it just looks amazing. It's all online. So you get, your additional players that way. Looks very fun. Yeah, this is a big win. Like, okay, I don't want to say that this is in the same league or category, but this is just about as big of a win as when, like, Xbox got Rocket League and got that on, I think it was Game Pass, and got that out free to a whole bunch of people.
Well, this also debuted on PlayStation Plus originally back in 2015. That's actually a part of how I initially played Rocket League, was that it was a part of the pass, and I just
there we
game.
go.
All right, cool, queue it up, we'll play it, and it's who I don't know if it's gonna be the same reception, but looks like we have a special guest.
Yeah, Parker showed up. No, it's a great way to build an audience for a game. Is to get it on there, and the developer still gets paid. That's the great thing about PlayStation Plus, Xbox Game Pass, or Xbox Gold, or whatever you want to do. Developers still getting paid anyway, and it builds a big audience for them. And I think that's going to be an important thing in this one, is that it's going to build that audience for what looks like potentially a very fun game to play. I am going to pick it up on Steam. I heard you are too, Xycia, so we're going to be playing
Yeah,
this.
we'll definitely probably have game of the moment for this. I mean, it's going to be a fun game. It's definitely a party game, and we may even do, weekend gaming of this with you guys, the fans, wanting to join, and we can play, and it'll be a good time. But it's something that it's one of those games that it definitely seems like it's a party game. It definitely seems like there's hours and hours and hours of just fun, of just, laughing and potentially drinking if you drink, and then having things like that, just to really enjoy this type of game and keep playing it for hours. So, we'll see. Like I said, the Twitch streamers that did play it this weekend, the closed beta, they had, I joined a stream that was streaming it, and they had, I think it was 133,000 people watching them. And they were this was an Overwatch streamer who was typically known for Overwatch, and they were taking this the time to play this on stream. And everybody was receptive. Everything was really funny, and it was great. And the guy, it was one of those games that the streamer didn't really have to do a lot of work to be talking about things, and this is funny. It was really just the game speaking for itself, and people were just having a blast with it. So it was really good to see that.
Absolutely. And you got your PlayStation Plus that is releasing their games for this month, and so of course you have Xbox that is releasing their games for the next month. I smell a reoccurring feature with this, but anyway. So, of course, you got Xbox Games with Gold that is coming out. And as usual, Xbox tries to release something that is on their modern system. Let's just say it isn't necessarily always a new game or anything like that. There's about to be a giant crash if I don't stop him. It isn't always a new game, but it could be. Seriously, Parker.
Parker's his cat, by the way. If you're listening,
yeah, he's
you can't see him.
He's rubbing
his joining the podcast today.
He's rubbing his face against the microphone. Yeah, it's not always like a brand new game. Sometimes it is. But it's usually a game that's on the modern system. And then they also release something on previous systems. They've had a lot of Xbox 360 games that they've released with games with gold. This time was interesting because they have 2 games on the modern system and 2 games on the original Xbox. So the first one that they have up was Portal Knights. And I looked at a little bit of video on Portal Knights, and it looks like Minecraft. Now, this is just based off of a couple minutes of watching gameplay, so it may not be a good comparison, but it definitely looks like Minecraft. Like, you can deform the terrain, you can dig into stuff. It looks like a graphical overhaul of Minecraft, or at least Minecraft with running with your higher resolution textures, which of course you can do on some of the versions. And possibly with some more like story hooks and adventures in there than Minecraft typically has. So that should be interesting. Also, they have Override Mech City Brawl. So I did not get to look at that. I have not heard of this before, but just look at the cover art, which has got, like these mechs and these robots, and, think of a brawl idea like a Smash Brothers or something like that, which I'm always terrible at, but always are fun to play.
I'm the same. I mean, I had a lot of people that are all about Smash Brothers, and they're like, "You want to play it?" I'm like, "Not really. I'm just not good at it." Like, I remember playing it back on 64 when it first came out, and it just I'm just not a good fighting game person. I mean, I'm just not. It's terrible.
Yeah,
I wish
brawl
I were.
game. There's fighting game people that'll fight you over that, whether it's a fighting game or a brawl game.
Really?
Yeah, no, believe me. I listen to some other podcasts that, boy, that's a big distinction. But yeah, no, I get you 100%. They're fun to play, especially if you're playing with people that are like you, where you're just doing it casual, and they're also just mashing buttons and occasionally hit out a combo or something. Right. So those are both Xbox One games that you'll get free if you have Xbox Gold. From the original Xbox, we have MX Unleashed, which looks like a motocross-ish type game. So that looks kind of interesting. And Xycia, I know you like this one, Red Faction 2.
Heck yeah. Red Faction was great. I remember playing that. I think the Red Faction original, when they had the multiplayer, it was one of the first games that gave you that destruction ability in the world. And I remember sitting across like the map, and I would just take a rocket launcher and I would shoot the same spot over and over until I made a tunnel. And then I would run over there as fast as I could and just get in there with a sniper rifle and wait till somebody would like peek into the hole just so I could shoot them in the face. And that was like literally what my move would be. And then, obviously it wouldn't work out the first time.
And it was like everything was destructible, like buildings and bridges and even some of the terrain and just like cars and everything. I mean, like, you could follow the story if you wanted, but most of the people that I know that played Red Faction 2 never followed the story. They just blew stuff up because all the buildings broke in interesting ways. And then you like could get some materials, I believe, from it too, because there was some light crafting, if I remember. Now, one of the things I find interesting about this being original Xbox games, and I don't know anything about these two, about whether this is done to these two, because I played Red Faction. I know a little bit about it, but I don't know if they've done this. Other Xbox original games that they've released, sometimes they've done things like they've released them with updated textures based on the original art. Because usually the original art is much higher resolution than what ends up being shipped in the game.
Right.
So it's kind of like a graphical overhaul. I mean, the polygons are the same number of triangles and stuff like that. They don't change that. They're not going in and changing the programming, but the textures that they map on them end up looking better, and they look a little bit more modern. So I'll be curious if they do that to these two games as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would expect it, but we can't expect it just because it's done in the past. But you would think they'd probably do something like that.
Yeah. Now that we're done talking about the new games coming out for both PlayStation and Xbox, which, like I said, might become a reoccurring segment, let's talk about another reoccurring segment, because it's now time for this week's Cyberpunk 2077 update with Xycia.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate that. So our Cyberpunk 2077 news article of the day is they had an article interview with a website Spider's Web in Poland, and there was they were talking about the game, and one of the things that was translated about they asked a question about would the game touch upon world current events or current world events, and one of the things that was translated by Google. This is an article I'm reading from kitguru.net, and the quote from Powell that said one of the lead quest designers, he said, "For me, the most important thing is our game is a closed work and is not a political statement, a political thesis." So what they're saying is basically that, this game is not related to anything real world at all. This is a complete new IP that they're just creating. And the question was asked mainly because of Cyberpunk. So the genre of Cyberpunk, you've seen that in many movies and many anime and different avenues like that. And it's usually some sort of political backstory to it. It's always some kind of like content that really is the revolving arc, of it.
That's the punk part. That's the punk part. Cyber is easy. That's technology. The whole concept of cyberpunk is that there's a system you're rebelling against.
Right.
Which, how can you have that and not be political in some way? And I'm sorry, I laugh a little bit here because I mean that's a refrain that Ubisoft uses all the time, and they say it all. Oh yes, this is our latest Assassin's Creed, and we're not trying to be political in this, or this game, we're not trying to be political. Really?
This is a work of fiction.
Yeah, this is a work of fiction. Have you played Division or Division 2? I mean, there's very political underpinnings in that. Or Watch Dogs. Absolutely, with like, the Big Brother-esque. They even talk about it being Big Brother and like the government, like, viewing all of your actions. That's, whether you want to or not, you are talking about a political thing. So the way you structure your game around that political thing is going to make a political statement. So,
yeah,
sorry.
I mean, it's true. The other part of this, to kind of give you some more Easter eggs, or just things I want to slide in here because it's Cyberpunk and why not. They also revealed new concept art of a place called Pacifica District, which is apparently if you look at this is a Screen Rant article, and it's a criminal resort. So it looks like the screenshot basically looks like a city resort, like almost like a small Dubai or something like that, kind of on the water, large buildings, and everybody like there's like, but it's like more run down. Mm-hmm. And apparently this is going to be a part of the game where there's just criminal overrun city is just a bunch of criminal activity, and all of it's almost like a favela in like Brazil, but it's just like very run down, but at the same time very modern. And they just keep leaking little concept art here and there just to kind of keep us our taste buds wet, I guess, as we continue forward to this November 19th release. And that's pretty much our Cyberpunk 2077 update of the day.
No, I mean the picture you paint, because the favelas in Brazil are they go up the hills away from the coastline and everything, up the mountains basically. And I can just envision that with a Dubai type landscape, where instead of hills, that you just see all these hovels and everything going up against the giant skyscrapers that are half abandoned and stuff like that instead of the hills.
Yes.
So that's awesome. Amazing.
Well, cool. So that wraps up our news articles of the day. We're going to take a minute here to hear a word from our sponsors. So hang out for just a minute. We'll be back. And we're back. So thanks for listening. So we're going to actually move into our short stories now. The first short story little we have this week is we've talked about Red Dead Redemption in the past, and obviously, the things that we've seen. But there's been a new kind of uncovered story that apparently is happening online. So not just dressing up as clowns, but now they've decided to create their own sport. There's a sport now called Pygmy, right? Pigby. I'm sorry. Pigby. Can't even say it. Pigby. So it's a mixture of like American football and rugby, which is kind of odd because that's literally what American football is kind of. But it's a little more violent than that. The idea is there's two sides of the field. There's almost like a wall of death. If you've ever been to a metal concert, it's like one side and then one side and one on the right, one on the left, and there's a a referee that basically takes a pig skin or a pig body or any kind of, duck or whatever they can find in the game, and they run out to the middle of the field, they drop it, and then they back off, and then the wall of death closes, so both sides start charging each other and to try to take the pigskin or whatever it is on the ground and move it to the other side of the field to try to like win the game or get a point to win the game. And but what it ends up turning into is just a big battle from left to right of just people just getting tackled and fist punching each other and backhands and all the fun stuff. And I don't think guns are supposed to be permitted in this, but it's definitely something to check out. There's actually a big Reddit compilation on it. You can check it out online. And there's an article that shows a little bit of the gameplay. It's PCGamesSN.com, and they have a good little like GIF of what's actually happening. But the rules are basically you do that, and you pick a place and pick a time, and everybody meets there, and it goes down.
Man, I mean, like, if Rockstar is smart, they're going to do the same thing that Epic does, which is that they're looking at what their people are doing, and then they just encourage it by releasing stuff that helps them do that. I mean, could you imagine if like 2 months from now, like Rockstar releases a patch that updates it, and then all of a sudden, they can put a little bit more structure around this, have it, being able to cordon off an area with like markers or something where no firearms are allowed. You know
what it is the crowd had to the players had to create content, and now it's easy. Right. All Rockstar has to do is pick the content out and just make an update. So
they just have to encourage it. I mean, that's what Epic does with Fortnite, is they just encourage the things that the players come up with, and they come up with their own stuff too. But I mean, there's reasons why Fortnite is one of the biggest games in the world right now. Then again, Rockstar's GTA 5 also there.
Also.
But there they have encouraged, they have put in the work in the GTA 5 online. So another big game, an annual franchise, is the Madden NFL. Now, Madden NFL has, they teased this week that basically their superstar X Factor is coming back. This is something they've had in the past. And, for instance, the X Factor is special abilities that are tied to specific players. For instance, this is a GameSpot article that I'm reading from. But for instance, Madden NFL 20, their cover star, Patrick Mahomes, had an X Factor ability called Bazooka that increases his maximum throwing distance. While Stephen Gilmore, his X Factor was called Shutdown. And that increases his defensive skills and the likelihood that he'll make interceptions. And that this is all cool. And I will admit, I'm not necessarily a fan of Madden football. I don't necessarily play it regularly. There are plenty of good fans out there, and it's very popular. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it up. But the other reason why I wanted to bring it up is because the way they announce this and introduce this is very much 100% a comic book cover. Madden NFL 21 presents Superstar X Factor. We're back. And it was interesting that they did this as a comic book cover because X Factor is a real thing. It is a spin-off of the X-Men. It is an actual comic that is out there. And I am shocked that they're able to do this without Marvel coming in and like suing them for either copyright or even trademark infringement, because, X Factor being the name of a comic that is possibly even trademarked. So, hopefully they have a deal with Marvel that they're allowed to do that, because they're making no bones about this, like acting like it's a comic book, like superpowers type thing. Either way, I'm sure fans of Madden will be very excited that, these X Factor powers are coming in, and hopefully they're above board with Marvel on this and not going to get in trouble.
Yeah. The next article we looked at is, so marketing has been a big thing in gaming coming up, and getting ads, and even in Rocket League we talked about, they've done banners for their own game, like basically the new tournaments that are coming up, they've put like banners in the crowd. It's an arena event. So lately what they've done is back in for UFC 3, they started pumping in with EA, started pumping in different advertisements for TV shows and shows coming up or movies coming up, like Rick and Morty, Snowpiercer, and things, and even a golf tournament that was played by a couple different celebrities. And so what they're trying to do is see if they can reach a new platform. In the sense that most people don't watch TV anymore, especially the younger generation isn't really watching. They're literally either online streaming, they're playing video games, or watching YouTube videos, and they're trying to tap into that market as well. So not just only are they doing that, they've also done the sense of like cell phones, like when you get on your Candy Crush or when you play any game. I'm sure you or me or anybody that's listening at some point, there's been some game on their phone it's somewhat interesting enough to want to play it. And in order to get, either a bonus or maybe some extra coins to be able to play towards, the upgrade you need faster, you watch a 30-second ad. And what they're thinking about is actually adding in, what they've been testing is adding in those different little ads like that. So where, you gain, if you watch this video 30 seconds long, you'll gain so many coins, and those coins can be used for the shop to buy, different add-ons, different clothing, different attributes that you can use for your character. And that's something they're looking at now, and I think it's pretty interesting, because obviously they're trying to tap into that market, and it's only going to be a matter of time before everything is pretty much integrated. So it's pretty interesting to see that.
Yeah, it's interesting to see it. It's also interesting in some ways that it's news, because I remember this being in a lot of games way back in the day. I remember like FPS shooters that were released in the early 2000s, where they had dynamic ads showing up on billboards that they could switch it out, and then they never did switch it out. They just like left up like the Hardee's ad from
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
And
I mean, back in the day, there's been a lot of those, but at least now with all the whole, like you're saying, dynamically, they can swap them out, and a lot of it is all online. They can.
Yeah, with online games even easier. But I mean, with updates that you had with the 360 and stuff like that, they were meant to be dynamic. And like, hey, do you remember 1 versus 100?
You talking about Xbox?
Yeah. So the trivia game. The trivia game, 1 versus 100. That also was built on the concept of doing in-game ads. Now, not as dynamic, because I mean, it was it was more of a broadcast thing that day's ad was going to be that day's ad, as opposed
free to play, and you could potentially win a bunch of money. So
yeah, as opposed to a game that you're playing over and over and over again that could have dynamic ads added into it. So it's funny that they're taking another swing at this, because boy, they have tried at least 3 or 4 times in the past and really haven't had success. So I'll be curious to see how well this works out this time. Speaking about older things coming back and how well they work out this time,
I feel like we do this on purpose, but it's really not this it's like skidded thing that we do. We just kind of roll into these things.
No,
but yeah, speaking of
segues, these segues aren't. These segues really are like dynamic and live. We didn't think about this ahead of time. Actually, this stuff was in a different order than the order that I'm doing it. For some,
I noticed.
For some inside baseball and back end, information there. No, but speaking of something that will it work out better this time? G4 was essentially an actual TV channel back in the day. And G4 released a teaser video, and it went through like this kind of warehouse, almost like, end of Raiders of the Lost Ark warehouse where all the stuff was stored, and labeled and everything. And the camera pans through it, and there's a bunch of in-jokes on the way, and some of the music is reminiscent of some of the G4 stuff back in the past. And, they even like pan across some of the actors type seats, chairs that you see like on set with like their names on it, stuff like that. They pan across some of that, and they pan across some other in jokes, and they come back to this monitor where it looks like 2 basically AI computer players are playing Pong. And it's like these astronomical scores. And Pong's important because Pong was basically the first thing that was covered and broadcast on G4, and the last thing that was covered and broadcast on G4. And they come to this Pong, and it goes away, and it like zooms, it shoots through this like cyber tunnel and everything, and it pops up and says G4. We've been playing games all along, or I might get the quote slightly wrong there, but essentially that. And it was really interesting because G4 is coming back in some way, shape, or form. Who knows how? And you would think that it would be like an online only thing because, like you said, there are many people that have gone away from TV. You talk about the younger generation, but hey, I'm the older generation and I hardly watch any TV. I'm primarily YouTube and online. But it'll be interesting to see if they actually do it online or not. Some of the theories, though, is that it may not be online because the final image was in a 4:3 aspect ratio, which is the traditional aspect ratio of old school TV before, like HD went more towards the 16:9. But I'm curious.
For those who don't know, that's when you're watching a TV show and it goes from like a square box to full screen, everything's HD. That was the jump. And it's funny because that's like how my wife looks at TV shows when she watches, like, oh look, now we're in HD, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's crazy. It's funny you mentioned that though, because with this jump, and I mentioned before with Plex, like Plex had released last week that or announced last week that they were going to have a live TV channel or live TV, and they were going to have multiple channels, and I could see this literally fitting in right into one of those channels where it's a live TV broadcast.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
G4 channel.
That'd be amazing if they partnered together. Or disastrous. Could go either way on those two.
I mean, I mean, and that's kind of funny. Like
I was a fan of G4. I watched a lot of shows on there. I watched, I think it was X Play. I have physically met and shook the hands of Adam Sessler and Morgan Webb. And even Adam Sessler tweeted out about this, like, that's kind of interesting. This is coming back. So yeah, I'm really curious about what's going to be going on here.
Yeah. I mean, as everything else, it's too soon to tell, and we'll find out as soon as it happens. But you'll hear it here first, hopefully in the next week at least. So the next thing we got is so there's a company called Analogue, Analogues, and they have looks like what a Game Boy Pocket would have looked like if it were made by Apple, in a sense. And they've
With
actually created
technology.
What it is basically a more modern, sleek handheld Game Boy. And what it is it actually plays your old Game Boy games along with Game Gear, Neo Geo, Pocket Color, and Atari Lynx. So it's one of those things that people have been wanting one of these, especially like, I have games that are laying around that just haven't been able to be played. Like I still got my old Game Boys and stuff, but it would be nice to have a newer console that I can actually play these games on that would, give it the justice I need, plus the battery life and things like that. And they've good news and bad news that they've actually announced that they have now delayed until 2021 due to what their statement was basically, it was originally slated to launch this year, early this year, but then due to the state of world with the whole Rona economy, they're now expecting it to be released by May 2021. And that's that is what it is. But the good news is they also announced that they're going to start pre-orders very soon. So they're going to start opening their pre-orders for August 3rd.
Of course,
so if you wanted to check one of these out,
everybo's got to have a pre-order. Oh my God.
Yeah, you got to have a pre-order for a pre-order. At this point, so that is it is one of those things. It is a USB-C that looks like to be the charging point of this. So that'll be something new and nice to have to integrate with everything else we have nowadays. But it's a pretty neat little thing. If you want to check it out, there's a Verge article on it. They have a little kind of like more pictures and things to let you know what's going on with it.
Yeah, and I'd like to say, again, your mileage may vary, and do your research before you jump it. A pre-order for hardware is so risky if you don't know much about it. Okay, sure, yeah, I'll pre-order one of the new consoles coming up, but that's Microsoft and that's Sony.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to talk anybody out of this either, because Analogue has. If you go and look at their page, I don't have any of their products, so I'm not endorsing anything here. As usual, we don't endorse stuff. But I'll tell you, I mean, just looking at this stuff, they've released several other products in the past where you can play several different types of classic games on it. So they're also not like some startup Kickstarter that you don't know if they're going to deliver or not. So your mileage may vary. Check it out, research it, make your own decision, and then go from there. It does look, boy, this is probably one of their best looking products though, out of all their products. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's very sleek looking. I mean, speaking of things that may make the mileage or not, this is another topic we've kind of talked about in the past is game, TV, or movies. And
or
of
movies,
course,
yes.
There has been a slew of movies and TV shows in the past based on video games, and and even full circle at this point, and even based off books like The Witcher. I think The Witcher is probably the best that I've seen in a long time. That people really want to watch, and they're actually apparently already starting a new spinoff of The Witcher from another part of the series, and who knows how that's going to go.
Or even just watch Henry Cavill build a computer. Oh wait, that was last week. Never mind.
That was last week. Sorry, you got the wrong notes up. So another thing that, of course, one of the leading producers of new content, new movies, new TV is Netflix. So Netflix has announced that they've actually ordered a total of 16 episodes spread across 2 different seasons for an anime show called Splinter Cell. So based on the Splinter Cell series. If you're not familiar with the Splinter Cell franchise, it's basically based on a game of an ex-Navy SEAL named Sam Fisher, who has to basically, he's recruited by the NSA to battle the spy evils of the world. And it's a really cool game. It's one of those games you've definitely played in the past where it's like a stealth kind of sneaking around, trying to almost Metal Gear-esque, but just definitely a lot more tools and things you can do, and a little more action-packed than just trying to be stealthy. And so they've ordered that. The news with that, though, is actually they've got the co-creator of John Wick, the John Wick series, to start doing the writing for this. So there's not really much else they have on this. There's an Engadget article that you can read on it, and it's really just, that's pretty much been the announcement. But it's something to look forward to. We'll have to see if this obviously becomes something. This may be another Castlevania or Castlevania win, or even a Witcher win for Netflix.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, and while we're on this subject of alternate ways to be able to get your information or broadcast entertainment, Fortnite has been just killing it with this concept. Fortnite, which originally was just a game about zombie apocalypse, and you're trying to build your base to protect yourself from it, and then actually became a battle royale where which just blew up massively with the concept of not only battle royale, but you can build stuff at the same time. You can build stairways up into the sky and try to get away from people that way. They had introduced Party Royale, and Party Royale, which is where you just kind of get to go into the Fortnite engine or game, and you don't compete against each other. You don't fight each other. You're there to, party. And they've had movies. Literally everybody sits down and watches a movie, and, and at the same time, also, it's brilliant on their part because not only do you get to go in there to watch a movie or something like that, but you get to show off, all the cool stuff that you've outfitted your character with, your skins and your armor and your weapons and your hats and all the things that you're able to equip your
much like a MMO when you start off, you have that base camp that you get to show off everything at.
Yeah, you get to show off all the stuff that you've either worked for or found or purchased, found in loot boxes, whatever. So, I mean, that's brilliant because that's what people want to do. They want to show off the cool stuff they got. But you sit there and you can watch a movie with everyone else. That's one thing. They have had actual concerts, and there's a comic strip talking about oh no, that's not a concert, that's just an advertisement. And then they're actually watching it no, that's an actual concert. That's as close as to a concert you're gonna get without physically being there. So they've legit had some things like that. Now, having a venue like that and having the ability to bring people together and convey a message or convey entertainment, they actually have used that for some other more, let's say, educational, aspects. Basically, just recently this week, Fortnite hosted another one of their We the People panels. And the whole concept behind it was, to bring to people's attention concerns in the community. And their most recent one was about voter suppression. So they had this on the 28th. This happened, while we were actually doing our game in the moment. And, they got together and, had some people come up and talk about some of the concerns and actual things that have been happening, where regardless, I'm not even talking about party because, in reality, this can happen on both sides. But, concerns about voter suppression, problems with, absentee or mail-in ballots, and just things to watch out for, things to talk about. Again, I was not able to attend this. I think this is amazing that you can take a game, one of the most popular games in the world, and you can turn it into this thing where people can just join together and consume entertainment together and have fun, or actually talk about current events and current topics in a very serious manner, and find out information from people that, are involved in this stuff. Like anything else, you have to, do your own research as well and find out, what is hyperbole, what is, actual, information, what is, kind of in between, and, take it from there. But was fascinating that a game is being used this way. And kind of sticking with the political side.
And also using a platform for something else.
And using a platform for something else. Now, so having an update from last week's information. We had talked about last week about how, like Xycia said, using a platform for something else. U.S. Army using Twitch as a recruiting platform. And on top of that, banning people who had asked questions, which, gets to that First Amendment suppression of freedom of speech, because they're not banning people they're harassing. They're literally a government organization doing a government job. And I don't want to get too much into that side of it, but that there was concerns that could be suppression of freedom of speech. Again, go check that stuff out because it's kind of interesting. But one of the things that we talked about then was that there was a bill being introduced about preventing the armed forces from using entertainment sources, and it specifically named out Twitch as a method of recruiting people. And that bill actually looks like it was introduced by Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And she had introduced that. That went over to the U.S. House of Representatives, and apparently that got blocked. So they basically shut that down. Whether you agree with that or not is not really what we're going to get into. Simply reporting that, hey, we talked about it last week, talked about that bill being introduced, and now that's pretty much been squashed at this point. Good, bad, or indifferent.
The quote that she had, though, she tweeted out after that happened, and she tweeted to everyone and said, trying to explain to your coworkers what Twitch is. And she had like a crying face, like a little emoji crying, because it's, literally that. not getting into politics or anything like that, but I mean, literally, I mean, Twitch is a new platform. I mean, I could tell my parents, I have to explain to my parents what Twitch is, and they're like, okay, what does that mean? Like, it's not that out there yet.
Especially when her coworkers, are members of, Congress, that the median age you're talking about is like the 50s.
Yeah.
And trying to explain to them what Twitch is and why this might not be a thing that you want to do, that the median age watching the US Army play these various games is probably okay. Well, no, I get it. I being someone who is in the Navy, I kind of get it. You don't recruit people that are in their 20s and 30s and 40s. You're recruiting teenagers, literally out of high school. Yeah. So you can see the Venn diagram here. There's a lot of overlap between the people watching Twitch and who you're trying to recruit. So I get what they're trying to do. I don't necessarily, I will say it, I don't think it's quite the right way to do it, at least without saying that's what you're doing, being a little bit more open about it. But hey, does there need to be a law about it? Well, apparently not, because our representatives who don't understand Twitch fully decided not to do a law about it.
Yeah, at least for now.
For now.
So we're gonna roll into our email segment. Obviously, right now there's still no emails. I wish I could read one out loud for you, but I can't. Other than the ones that are gonna find us 1 million fans by clicking the button, and those are great. Don't get me wrong. Please keep sending us those. I am super entertained about how many fans I can get from emails, and it's
and
great.
That we're never going to use.
That. Yeah, man,
never going to use one of those.
But if you are interested and you are listening and you want to submit an email to us, whether that be feedback or something that you may have heard in the past and that reminds you of a different story, we're totally receptive for those. We definitely want to hear any kind of feedback you have, whether it's even constructive criticism. That's totally fine. I mean, we're new at this. This is something that we're trying to work out and have a good time and have fun with it. And we're definitely, wanting to hear from you as well. So if you want to send us an email, it's goa@sassgaming.com. So that email address again is goa@sassgaming.com. And like I said, we'll receive it. We'll read it out loud on the podcast. Obviously we won't read your email address or anything like that. We'll keep yourself, private in that sense. But if you want to leave your handle or even a name, we can definitely read that out and give you the shout out that we need. So with that, this is what got our attention this week. And if you're listening to the podcast, thanks for listening for one. And obviously you can keep checking us out here on the podcast or live, like right now on Twitch. We're streaming live every Thursday at 9 p.m. And
or on YouTube
what's that?
Or on YouTube. We're posting it.
Or on YouTube, yeah.
Yep.
So you can check it out on Twitch. You got YouTube. You've got all the different podcast areas. And if you like what you heard, let us know. Slap a subscribe, a like, or follow, whatever you want to consider that. And we really appreciate it. And until next time, you guys have a good day and a good week. And we'll talk to you next week.
Have a good weekend.